Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts, and I am here with my first layout using Doodlebug's Happy Healing. So excited about this. I pulled out this sketch from the Whole Picture Volume 1 from Scrapbook Generation. I'm going to be using sketch number 1. These photos are of Eli when he got an injury. That was all my fault. What I decided to do was pull out the Doodlebug petite prints that I had purchased for this collection. And I realized that I needed an additional color, so I went ahead and pulled out a gray from my stash. This sketch basically calls for strips of paper along the entire layout, and the strips of paper are 2-inch long, and they're in the same order. So there's 5 strips of paper and then they repeat, with one color being repeated 3 times and the other colors only being repeated twice. Now I guess you could mix it up and do whatever you want. That's the great thing about scrapbooking, right? We can do it in any order that we want. But I do like the uniformity of this particular sketch and the way that it is laid out this way. So I did try to use different patterns as well. So I did pull out the swimming pool in the polka dots, but those are not the Swiss dots. I have the limeade in the checkerboard. I have a gray, I don't know that color, in the linen, then a plaid in the yellow, a stripe in, I believe that is cherry. Now for the right hand side of the layout, since I was going to be covering up most of that paper with pictures, I decided to just go ahead and cut out the squares large enough so that I could tuck them behind. So the squares are actually 2 inches tall and then obviously 2 inches wide as well. And then the strips of paper are also 8 inches tall. So once I get all of the paper cut out, I'm going to go ahead and lay the strips of paper all the way across the 2 double page layouts. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut the 1/4 inch strip down so that it ties all of these colors together. And the predominant color in that stripe paper is pink, but once you cut it down, the pink doesn't show as much. On the right hand side of the layout, I have 3 photos of Eli with his injured lip, and they are kind of in order of how they happen. So the first 2 photos are going to be like the night that it happened, and then the far right hand photo is going to be the one where it was later in the evening after he had taken a shower and stuff. I wanted to mount the 2 3x4 photos for the left hand side on white cardstock. I pulled out my paper trimmer thinking that I could gut the paper and then use it for mounting my photos. But then after I was struggling with it, I was like, why don't I just use my layering guides? Like, that's the whole point of having them. So I went ahead and mounted the photo directly on the white cardstock and then pulled out my layering guides and then used my X-Acto knife to cut out the photo. Once I got the photo mounted, then I could go ahead and lay down the strips of paper. The strips of paper are about 1.5 inches from the bottom and top. So I went ahead and used my T-square ruler, measuring up 1.5 inches, and then using my T-square ruler to make sure that all of my layers are straight. I did go ahead and put my adhesive directly on the white cardstock. That way it would not be in the center where I'm going to have to put washi tape on the back. For whatever reason, my paper is 2 inches. This white piece of cardstock is 12 inches, so you would think that 2 times 6, because there's 6 pieces of paper, that it would equal 12. And it does not. And like, I don't understand it. It does not make any sense to me whatsoever. I do have to paper shave one of the pieces. I did add the washi tape to the back. That not only secures it in place, but because I had those strips, it really helped make sure that those strips stayed in place as well, because they are laying right next to each other. So you might have noticed when I was putting them down that there was a little flimsiness between them. Once I got the left hand side of the layout done, the right hand side was a little bit more tricky because I had to make sure that the paper was lined up at the bottom and the top, as well as making sure that the patterns were going in the same direction, especially like the striped pattern and the plaid and gingham patterns, because if I had turned them slightly, you could definitely tell that I had paper pieced these together. So I went ahead and added all of the papers on the bottom. Once I got all of those down, then I started with the top strip as well. After I get the paper down, then I'm going to add the photos. As I'm doing that, let me tell you the story of these injuries. I travel for my job from time to time, and when I travel, I am required to rent a car. Most of the time, the cars are just the economy cars, like the cheapest car that's available. But because I travel so much, the people at Enterprise do tend to get to know me very well. And sometimes if there's not an economy car, instead of upgrading me to a full-size car, they might upgrade me a little further. And I've gotten cars like Jeeps and Mustangs. On this particular day that the injury happened, I had gotten an F-250, so it was a huge truck. And I actually asked for it because my mom had just had a tree taken down, and the pieces of the tree were still in her yard, and the city wasn't willing to pick them up. Like, she had to actually take them to the dump. So when they told me they didn't have an economy car and I saw the truck out there, I was like, oh, I can go travel for work. Usually I get home after 5 o'clock, so I don't have to drop the car off right away. And my thought was, I can help my mom out. We can load the truck up with these big tree stumps and take it down to the dump. After we took care of all of that, we were headed back to Enterprise to drop off the truck. And Eli asked if he could ride in the bed of the truck. It is against the law in the state of Florida to do that if you're under a certain age. So I told him that he could ride in the back of the truck, but only in Nana's neighborhood. So we were driving around in Nana's neighborhood, and I would occasionally tap the brakes, and Eli would slide back and forth in the bed of the truck. And Eli was having a blast. He was giggling, and just, you could tell the huge smile on his face. He was having so much fun. So we're coming up on the stop sign at the edge of the neighborhood, and I was slowing down to allow him the opportunity to get out and get in the front of the truck. Well, I went to hit the brakes one more time to make him slide, and at that exact moment he decided to stand up to jump out of the truck because he was going to do it while I was still moving, which then had him sailing forward to the open window in the cab of the truck and busted his entire lip. So he had 3 cuts on his lip. Blood is pouring everywhere. He's crying. I'm freaking out because I'm I don't know what to do. So we get in the truck, and I'm trying to put pressure on it with the napkins that I've had in the truck and trying to stop the bleeding. I get the bleeding stopped. We had to run home so that I could get that taken care of before I could take the truck back. And you can definitely see in the photos that he was very upset. He's definitely not a crier. He's not one to show a lot of emotions, but this was definitely a day that he was showing emotions. I knew I wanted to document this story for quite a while, and I never really had any paper or collections that would really work. So I'm so glad that Doodlebug came out with this collection because I'm able to document these stories. So now that I have all of the photos down, I'm going to start working on the stitching, and I'm looking through my threads to try to find colors that match. I think I posted this on Instagram. It is linked below. You will be able to see all the behind the scenes. I think for this particular one, I was actually looking for what the names of the colored threads were because I wanted to make sure that they matched perfectly because that's my personality. I went off camera and I stitched this layout. And I completed this entire layout, took photos of it, and now as I'm sitting down to do this voiceover, I realize that I stitched on the tops and bottom of the 1/4 inch strip on the right, and I stitched in the middle on the left. Well, now I have to go back and stitch the left-hand side of the layout because it doesn't look right. And I need to figure out if I'm going to go underneath the 1/4 inch strip. I don't even know. I have no idea. I need to figure that out. I'm gonna have to do that off camera, and I'll definitely do that before I take photos and try to figure all that out. So my title is going to be Boo Boo with a little band-aid. I think that title is perfect for this particular layout because that's really no other words for the injuries that he has. Over on the right hand side, I did add a first aid box, and those are the 2 larger pieces of embellishments that I knew I wanted to use. And I also knew that I wanted to put my photo on the left hand side up on fun foam. So I go ahead and add that. I also add fun foam to both the title Boo Boo and the first aid box. And then I start filling in the pieces. I found this little medicine bottle and it says "Ache Be Gone" for like the name of the medication, which again, I thought was perfect. I also found this little cloud that had a band-aid on it and some rain falling from it. So I added that to the cluster in the upper right-hand side. And then for the title cluster, I added a first aid handbook sticker as well as a yellow heart. There are lots of silver accents in this collection, and I think that it really offsets all of the wonderful colors that this collection has, especially those band-aids. I feel like the band-aids and the silver really play well together. I also decided to add a band-aid to the upper left-hand corner of the photo. The band-aids in the collection, they all have faces on them and they're all different. Some of the faces are sad, some of them are, kind of neutral, some of them are happy, which I think Doodlebug did a really good job in regards to that, because there are times when you wear band-aids when you're happy about it, after a surgery and you're coming to the end of a surgery or end of an injury, maybe you're having your cast taken off or something like that. It's a happy band-aid that you're putting on. You're moving into that next step. So I like that they considered that when they were designing this collection. Over on the right-hand side, I added a circle that says, "All you need is love and meds." Bella Boulevard does a lot of speech bubbles, and I tend to cut off the speech bubble part of it. So I just made it into a circle. And that is completely all silver, which plays really well into that gray first aid box. Then I pulled out some of the sprinkle shapes in the band-aids and added those to the clusters, as well as a first aid sign, like the little red plus sign. Over on the left-hand side, I added like a little clipboard that you would see at a doctor's office. And then I also picked up the shape sprinkles in the hearts and added those to the clusters as well. My journaling is super, super long. It's going to take up the entire left-hand side of the layout as well as space underneath the photos. So my journaling says, "Every so often, work calls for a rental car. On one occasion, all the cars were taken, so I lucked out with a big truck instead. After we left Nana's place, Eli popped the question, 'Can I ride in the truck bed?' I said he could, but only in Nana's neighborhood. I revved up and then slammed on the brakes, sending him spinning in the truck bed. Cue his laughter, reaching a whole new volume. Just as I was about to leave the neighborhood, I accidentally hit the brakes too enthusiastically, launching Eli straight into the truck window. Poor thing had blood pouring out of his mouth, not sure who was more scared. These photos are later in the evening when I finally got his mouth to stop bleeding." I felt like this layout needed a lot of explanation because I didn't want it to just be injuries to his mouth and oh my goodness, what is going on? It does take me quite a while to get all of those strips down. I do want to remind you guys that I have Nicole's Facebook group linked below if you would like to get the template for this die. It allows you to type up your journaling and then use this Hero Art die to print out perfectly even strips for your journaling. And it's especially needed when you have this much journaling. I do cut out blank ones and stack them 3 deep so that it does have some dimension when I'm using them. And then I also cut off the edges because I can't ever get anything straight. Using my T-square ruler, I go ahead and add all of the journaling down over on the far left-hand side. I did break it up because I would not have been able to fit it all over on the left-hand side. Also, right above the photo, I decided to add the date with the journaling strip just because it wouldn't fit in either one of the other places. I probably could have added it like right above the word boo-boo, but I felt like that would have been really out of place and that didn't make any sense. So let me know in the comments below, have you guys picked up this collection? Are you guys excited to document the not so fun memories that we have? Or maybe you have some fun memories that you want to document with this collection. I think that there are lots of possibilities. After I get my journaling down, I do decide to add just a little small cluster right next to the journaling strips underneath the photo. So I just added a band-aid and then 3 little hearts. If you're wanting to pick up this collection, I do believe Lynn over at the Paper Addict Crafty Buy-In group can still get some of the pieces. So I will link it below. And if you want to go check it out, feel free to shop with her because she has some amazing prices. And then that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I now have to go fix the stitching on this layout and decide what I want to do. If you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.